And what is up, YouTube? We are here today with another Getting Started in PoE video. Today we're going to be talking about the Lord's Labyrinth, otherwise known as Lab for short. Lab has got four different types of lab. There are four different levels to lab. As you go through the labyrinth, your character ascends, which you can think of ascendancy as a subclass. It's a way in which your character gets another little passive skill tree that they can begin picking points from, and every time you complete a labyrinth, you get 2 more points to be able to dump into your ascendancies. It's really, really great to be able to have your ascendancy and your lab points as you complete it, and you really get to see your character have a power spike. Well, today we're going to take a look just really quickly at what the labyrinth looks like, and first off, we're going to take a look at what the mission is. So very simply, when you are playing through the story mode of Path of Exile, you're going to start out, and right away you will have the option to have this quest called the Lord's Labyrinth. And what it will do is it will tell you to go to different locations throughout Rayclast in order to solve trials of ascendancy. And once you have unlocked all of the trials of ascendancy, you'll be able to travel to Act 3 to the Sarn encampment and be able to attempt the very first labyrinth. So let's take a look. What is the Lord's Labyrinth? Let's dive in. The labyrinth is a randomly generated dungeon filled with traps, puzzles, and monsters. Completing the labyrinth for the first time unlocks a character's ascendancy class and points for the powerful ascendancy skill tree. It also offers equipment, enchantments, several unique items, and competitive leaderboards. That is the Lord's Labyrinth. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look just really quickly. There are 4 different versions of the Lord's Labyrinth. So first off, at level 33, you can enter in at the Sarn encampment at this massive statue that you can see. It's at the top of the stairs. It's behind Hargan, and in between, or above the stairs behind Clarissa. So if you walk up those stairs, you'll see this massive statue, and you can click on it once you've completed the first 6 trials, and you can enter into the labyrinth zone. The monster level in the first zone is level 33, and the first labyrinth requires 6 trials. There's 1 in Act 1, 2 in Act 2, and 3 in Act 3. While the layout changes every day, some things are constant. The first room is always a forgotten reliquary, and there is only one path through it to the first Azaro fight. The second room can lead directly to Azaro, but there is an optional room too. The path to the final fight always has 2 rooms. The final fight takes place with no traps, and there is a limited number of mechanics. Completing the labyrinth gives a choice of ascendancy class, 2 ascendancy points, and the chance to add an implicit modifier to a pair of gloves. Alright, then when you continue on, you'll get to the Cruel Labyrinth. The Cruel Labyrinth has monster level 55, and the second labyrinth requires 3 trials, 1 in Act 6 and 2 in Act 7, a minimum level of 40, as well as the completion of the first labyrinth. Like the first labyrinth, the first room is a forgotten reliquary and provides a straight shot to Azaro. The next 2 fights require 2 rooms each. Labyrinth traps appear with the final fight with more and stronger mechanics than the first labyrinth. Completing the Cruel Labyrinth gives 2 ascendancy points and a chance to add an implicit modifier to gloves or boots. The modifier to gloves has higher values than those of the first labyrinth. So we're starting to pick up on a theme. The labyrinth is slightly buffed every time you go through it, and there's slightly more rewards every time you go through it. The Merciless Labyrinth is monster level 68. The third labyrinth requires 3 trials, 1 in Act 8, 9, and 10, a minimum level of 50, as well as the completion of the Cruel Labyrinth. Each fight with Azaro requires the player to cross at least 2 rooms to fight, but the room before the first Azaro fight is always a forgotten reliquary. All mechanics can be seen in the Azaro fights, many with stronger effects. Completing the Merciless Labyrinth gives 2 ascendancy points and the chance to add an implicit modifier to gloves, boots, and helmets. The modifier to gloves and boots have higher values than the previous labyrinths. So the first 3 labyrinths that you can complete by completing trials throughout the main storyline, Acts 1 through 10. However, Uber Lab, otherwise known as the Eternal Lab here, but its slang term is often Uber Lab, is monster level 75, and it happens after you finish Act 10. So the final labyrinth requires 6 trials found through the map device, a minimum level of 60, as well as completion of the Merciless Labyrinth. Each run costs 1 offering of the goddess, The layout requirements are the same as the Merciless Labyrinth. All mechanics are at full strength for the Azaro fights. The Eternal Trials in Labyrinth include a new trap type, Sentinel Traps. These traps apply one of many effects to an area and can be temporarily deactivated by dealing damage to them. Completing the Eternal Labyrinth gives 2 Ascendancy points and a chance to add an implicit modifier to gloves, boots, and helmets. The modifier to gloves, boots, and helmets have higher values than the previous labyrinths. Alright, so really quickly, as you are going through and playing through the game, you're going to complete these labyrinths and you're going to grow in your power level. You're going to see yourself grow incredibly well. In this video, I'm just quickly going to talk about traps that you're going to see throughout the labyrinth. I've chatted with a couple of new players this week that are just getting into Path of Exile with the release of Incursion, and they're really excited, and they completed their trials of Ascendancy, and then they went in to the labyrinth, and the very first time one of my new buddies went in, just got taken out by traps. And so one of the unique mechanics of the labyrinth is that if you die in the labyrinth, you will have to restart. You'll reset your labyrinth run. So let's say you get through Azaro Fight 1, Azaro Fight 2, and you're into the third and final fight of Azaro, and you die to a trap or you die to Azaro. Boom, you're dead. You have to run the whole thing over again. There's no portal. There's no ability to go back into that room. There's no shortcut. You have to go all the way back through, fight Azaro 1, 2, and 3 again in order to get those Ascendancy points or get the chance to roll for your treasure or for your enchants. So I want to make this very, very clear because it is not clear inside the game, and there's really not much for you to know this. But traps scale to your HP and energy shield pool, not to the monster zone level. Okay, I'm going to say that again loudly and clearly. So while each individual labyrinth scales to a monster level, traps scale to player level. So how is this worded here on the wiki? There are many different traps in the labyrinth. The traps from the Trials of Ascendancy and few others are combined in gauntlets throughout the area. They can be deadly, usually dealing a percentage of the player's life or energy pool as physical damage. They deal damage that scales with the player's life and energy shield pool. So make no mistake about this, you will take a ton of damage. You can be level 70 and have awesome gear, and you can go through the very basic labyrinth. It does not matter. If you stand on a trap long enough, you're going to die. So just realize that about traps. All right. There's going to be a couple more videos talking about the labyrinth as well as some tools that are available to you to help you run through the labyrinth. But that's the basics of the labyrinth concerning traps and concerning the benefits of running the labyrinth. We're also going to do a getting started video talking about ascendancies as well. So you can click below in the information to get the links to those videos.